Hello everybody. So this video is entitled, Did the AI Rally Forget About Palantir? Is Palantir cheap now? Because when you look, and by the way, this is after a stellar Q1. The Q1 was nothing short of amazing. But anyways, when you look at the numbers, you can see the chart, sorry, not the number, the chart. You can see over the past 5 years, Palantir, really the past year, it hasn't done much. The rally, the long-term rally of Palantir has kind of stalled, and then the market is getting, some may say overly excited, some may say rightly excited about Micron, about AMD. But you see, when I see parabolic moves like this, I mean, look at these charts. This is AMD, right? One of the new AI darlings. I mean, in a matter of 2 weeks, the stock, well, I'm exaggerating, but not that much, right? It sure looks like these stocks doubled in a matter of a month, maybe, right? And of course, Palantir has been so-called dead money for a year, maybe a year and a half, depending on when you look at. NVIDIA's chart, by the way, still looks very much okay to me. NVIDIA was kind of forgotten by this rally as well. It may change with earnings, but Palantir is such a core AI stock. It is a core AI stock, and it seems to have been forgotten by the AI rally. The AI rally now focusing on hardware like Micron, like AMD, maybe as of in a few weeks, maybe NVIDIA after NVIDIA reports earnings. So what's going on? Why is there anything wrong with Palantir? Well, let me tell you one thing. If you look at the results of the underlying business, nothing has changed. We are still accelerating. We are still doing better quarter after quarter. In fact, this is the revenue, quarter trailing 12 months, right? Quarter after quarter. The revenue in 12 months, you can clearly see the beginning of an S-curve, like an inflection point. This is exponential revenue growth. I mean, there's no better way to chart it. Yet, while the market was giving credit at the beginning for this revenue growth for Palantir, it has stopped giving it credit, and it really makes me wonder why. Because when I look at the number, okay, U.S. revenue up 104% year over year, 19% quarter over quarter. Think about that. There's so many stocks that don't even grow 19% year over year. This one grew 19% quarter over quarter. It's crazy. If you look at the total revenue grew 85% year over year, 16% quarter over quarter. If you look at commercial revenue, 133% year over year. Government revenue, 84% year over year. And this is of course with the government moving at a snail's speed. Government spending is very slow. And so 83% growth year over year is slow for Palantir. This is insane growth. Their rule of 40 is 145. And so their rule of 40, in the way they calculate it, it seems to only be exceeded by Micron. And I'll end the video talking about Micron because I am very surprised. I calculated the valuation of Micron, and I'm very surprised by what I just calculated. So I'll cover Micron at the very end briefly of the video. But Palantir is part of a club. Palantir is on the same vein as NVIDIA as far as attractiveness of the business, as far as how attractive this business is. The rule of 40 is 145%. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. So like I said, revenue growth is perfect. There's nothing to be upset about. It's literally perfect. Rule of 40 is a dream. And of course, the narrative and based on the customer wins. So, Palantir, every call, they talk about new applications and new customer wins and what the customers do. And they had a bunch of examples. They were talking about, for example, how insurance companies are proactive now, calling the companies with AI before the customers churn or leave. All sorts of real world example as to how Palantir actually delivers real results and actually increases the performance of his underlying company. Really, Palantir placing itself, defining itself as a new sort of AI, an AI that actually works, and AI that is not AI slop. For some reason, that call, they talked a lot about AI slop, a very trendy word talking about how people adopting AI don't realize they're actually adopting AI slop and not AI that actually works. And of course, slop is a term that comes from LLM. A lot of LLM are more prone to hallucinations, more prone to quote unquote slop, and Corp and Palantir are saying, of course, that their solution, which they don't call a software, their infrastructure solution replaces software with solutions that actually work. And these solutions that actually work are ontology, and on top of that, AIP built together. Go watch my early days videos about Palantir. I used to cover stock when it was 1/10 of the value it is today, and I went like deeper into the weeds as to what ontology does. It's very interesting. It's a higher order operating level of the organization. They recreate the organization in the cloud. It's like an organizational cloud, and it's able to predict. It's able to control. It's able to act. It's a new form of super powerful ERP system. Super powerful ERP system is how I would describe Palantir. It's the AI CEO. It's the AI actually controlling the corporation entirely and connecting to all of these different APIs, all of these different tools. You can just connect them to Palantir, and Palantir then just runs the organization based on where it sees the future headed. And Palantir, of course, is about seeing the future, seeing where the world is headed, making things happen. It's a fascinating business. It's absolutely a fascinating business. And the way they frame the company is AI must work. Slop is not acceptable at Palantir. The wrong solution, the wrong idea, the wrong action is not acceptable as at Palantir. And they explain this talking about anthropic mythos and talking about how AI breaches are going to be more and more common, mistakes are going to be more and more common, and you need an AI that actually works. And they say Palantir, of course, is that AI. And of course, I mean, when you see which institutions work with Palantir, when you see their closeness to the U.S. government, when you read about their founding story, investment from the VC fund of the Central Intelligence Agency invested in them in the early days. There's all sorts of story. When you see that book, of course, about politics, like there was a very popular book that Corp released talking about a technological republic or technological politics. This is really an N of one company. They have a very different strategy, and they talk about how load-bearing institution need load-bearing infrastructure, and ontology is that infrastructure. And by infrastructure, they mean by institution. They mean, of course, the government. And they do say the government is their number one institutional client. But then they also mean the companies, and the companies are also institution. And perhaps this view of themselves not seeing any mistake as acceptable is best described by their Maven Smart system, which is their war-fighting system. And talking about, the only thing they care about is that the kid returns home. And so for the kid to return home when they're at war, they need to have the absolute best solution. And the solution needs to not make a single mistake. And Palantir prides itself on actually not delivering slop, but actually delivering real value. And if you followed this company, that's what this company has been doing all along. They're like, we deliver real value. And of course, talking about the sales team, right? Corp in the call was talking about the sales team, talking about they only have 7 people who actually work in sales at Palantir. And you know how they sell Palantir? They do a demo. They show at your company what they can do with a demo, and the company writes $1 million check. That's essentially how they sell Palantir. They do these boot camps. Companies come with their problem. They do a little something, connect it to a Palantir software, and then boom, Palantir develop a solution that solves their problem. Like it's kind of like magic, I suppose. Which if you know the origin story of the company, the Palantir in is it Game of Thrones? No, not Game of Thrones. It's Lord of the Rings. If you look at the origin of that company, the Palantir is the almighty, all-seeing stone. So the company is actually very well named as to what they do. And let me talk about this. Another thing, pretty crazy thing to say about the CEO talking about the demand for the product, because of course all we care about is that exponential growth going to continue? Is that demand going to continue? I'm paraphrasing, but this is essentially what Corp said at the end of the call. He said, and it was tough to hear because I think Corp said he was neurodivergent or something, but it was tough to hear because he was like pounding on the table. He was doing this like the whole time he was pounding on the table during the conference call. I don't know what was going on with him. He was very agitated, but he was like, "Oh, demand is too high. Demand is too high. We're happy to see companies using the slop of our competitors. We're happy because right now we can't sell to all of them. We'll be there in a few years. We'll have more capacity to sell to them in a few years. We're happy they're using the slop of our competitors." Think about. I mean, it's a pretty crazy thing to say for a CEO. It's I want to use the word conceited. It's a very conceited thing to say, unless it's true. What if it's actually true? And these numbers actually show that it may actually be true. So still a pretty crazy thing to say. So the point I'm making here about Corp and Palantir is that it's probably an N of one company. It's single one of its league. It's like what Bitcoin is to crypto. It's like what Tesla is to car companies. It's what Nvidia is to semis and hardware. And by the way, I still believe Nvidia is undervalued, right? I don't know why I said that. I already said that already. The point I'm trying to say is Nvidia is way undervalued. Maybe if Jensen Huang was part of the PayPal mafia, maybe Nvidia would be also be trading very high. But of course, Palantir and Tesla are both companies that have historically traded very high, and they're of course founded. Peter Thiel founded Palantir. Tesla and Elon Musk, of course, people want to get technical, but Tesla wouldn't be what it is today without Elon Musk. It's worth noting that they were both part of the PayPal mafia. And the PayPal mafia, Peter Thiel wrote the book about 0 to 1, about creating N of 1 companies, about creating companies that are entirely different from anything else that already exists. And to me, that carries a lot of value. Feel free to look at the PayPal mafia, look at all of the companies that came out of it. It's very impressive. So the point I'm trying to say is that Palantir is most likely an N of 1 company, just like a Tesla, just like an Nvidia. By the way, the consequence of that is that Nvidia is probably overdue for a run, especially when I see what's happening to Micron and AMD. You can see Palantir and Nvidia are actually uniting themselves for sovereign AI, because just like Nvidia's chips are export controlled by the government, right? And that's especially when it comes to China. Palantir software is also not going to be sold and is also controlled a lot by the government and who gets to access it or not. So these companies are very institutional. Like their success is very much dependent on the institutional allowance of them being so successful. Anyways, the valuation. Let's talk about the valuation. I was so pleasantly surprised by the valuation of Palantir. I was expecting fully to tell you that I find Palantir very expensive. I can't say that I find Palantir that expensive. At a 0.92, of course, in my spreadsheet, anything above a 0.5, I consider it expensive, but not for an N of 1 company, not for a company that's N of 1. Nvidia is cheaper than Palantir at a 0.61. Now, and Nvidia definitely considered cheap, considering that it's the best company in its field. It's the very, very best company in its field. And so the fact that it's trading at a 0.61, to me, Nvidia looks super, super cheap. If you think that Palantir is the best company in its field, a 0.92 is super, super cheap. That's my take on this. Is I find it very cheap, and I use 80% forward revenue growth. But compare that to the number I just told you: 133%, 104%, 85%. Palantir could do a doubling. It could be 80% revenue growth, and so then you get an even cheaper stock, right? And I was going to conclude this video by showing you the valuation of Micron and tell you that Micron is overextended. And I just got spooked, and I realized, oh wow, I gotta make a video on Micron now, because Micron, with the new numbers, these are all of the recent numbers, is only a 0.28. What? I've never really delved too much into Micron, but I definitely do. It's only a 0.28. Rule of 40 is 153. By the way, this is consistent with Palantir's, even the Palantir assessment of Micron. They find a rule of 40 of 255. Now, it depends on how they calculate it, but I find 153 at my rule of 40 here. Whoa, Micron doesn't seem that expensive. Is Micron really gonna nearly double their sales next 12 months? If they do, that stock might actually be cheap. My issue historically with Micron is it's been a very, very cyclical company historically. But what this tells you about this is the market is wild. Like, the market is entirely wild. Like, how could it dismiss this company for half a decade? Like, the market has dismissed Micron for half a decade. I can't even imagine how long-term investors in Micron must have felt for over a decade. Wow. Crazy to tell you that Micron still looks a little cheap. And the question, of course, for all of these companies is the sustainability of the revenue growth. Like, how sustainable is that revenue growth? I would argue the revenue growth of Palantir may be a little more sustainable than Micron, but I'm not so sure. I don't know how long it's going to take for competitors to build capacity, to build memory, right? You have Samsung in there also working on building capacity. It seems like there's a little bit of a squeeze on the products that Micron is selling, and the question is that squeeze temporary or is that squeeze long term? But I definitely don't like to see a stock 7x right in front of my eyes, right? Like, I don't like that. I like a discount. That's why when I look at Palantir's chart, I'm like, okay, you didn't 7x in front of my eyes in next to no time. So I think Palantir is overdue for a run. I guess is my point. But Micron needs a separate analysis. It will come when I have time. Gosh, it's the weekend. I have more time on the weekend, but I have a full-time job, and this is crazy. Anyways, this was not investment advice. This is not financial advice. This is only entertainment. I'm hoping you were entertained. Please like, please subscribe, follow me on Patreon, follow me on X. Thank you for watching, and have a wonderful, wonderful day.